Foundation to champion women interests in film. The dialogue was also a way to address challenges that many women continue to face in this male-dominated industry. This dialogue was the first of many planned focus groups in order to gain an in-depth understanding of the current challenges faced by women in film. Just last week at the South African Film and Television Awards, a pledge was taken against the fight for women in the industry, particularly pertaining to sexual harassment. And to tell us more, we joined in studio by Zama Nkosi, who is the CEO of the NFVF. Very good morning to you, Zama, and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. The foundation hosted the Women in Film Dialogue at the Nelson Mandela Foundation. Take us through the dialogue and the outcomes of that dialogue and what came out of it.
Well, it was a first of its kind. Once again, it was important that we have that dialogue graciously hosted by the Nelson Mandela Foundation in a space that really promotes honest conversations. And the conversations was really interrogating the state of women in the film industry. We had both men and women invited in that dialogue because obviously the issue of women, it's everyone's business. But the key things that came out, I think it came out that we need to take proactive action as women. We cannot sit back and wait for equality to be handed on to us on a silver platter, but we need to put certain systems in place to make sure that we achieve that which we want to achieve. So the one key outcome from us as NFVF was to continue to partner, for instance, with organizations like SWIFT in conducting more research around the state of women in the industry. And coming out of that research, then we need to see what things we need to put in place as NFVF and what do we need to lead other institutions, both public and private, also to put in place.
A couple of years ago, you wrote quite a hard-hitting article, and you listed some of the many barriers to entry, particularly for women in this male-dominated industry, and you listed some of the factors such as funding, mentoring, and training. Fast forward to 2 years later, what has the NFVF done to counter those challenges?
Well, firstly, the NFVF has ring-fenced funding for women filmmakers. It got to a point where a decision was made that it's not just enough that funding was available for everyone, but we have to get to a point where we say this funding is exclusively made available for women filmmakers. And beyond that, we're not just going to give them money, but we are going to put systems in place in order to support them to make sure that they succeed even in that venture once they have received funding. So that is the one thing that we've done, and we've seen great success in that initiative. And as I was saying, also the studies that we are conducting we're doing studies and research that is focused towards transformation, particularly gender transformation.
And I suppose one of the many areas that needs to be touched upon is the issue of capacity building. I mean, it's meaningless giving funding to people who are not so capacitated, yet the passion is there.
Yes, and that is what we found to be the biggest challenge, that once the hurdle of funding has been crossed by women, beyond that, you need to be able to supplement with additional support. Hence, we also introduced what we call a SLATE program, which is basically an incubator where we support a company over a period of a couple of years, and we do not support companies just on a project-by-project basis. What that does is that it gives those companies an opportunity to try out a lot more projects, that they're not just dependent on one project, and if that project fails, then the whole company collapses. And we have seen, even in this most recent South African Film and Television Awards that we have had, that companies that we have supported in that venture are starting to show and they're starting to win awards.
Yeah, and speaking of the SAFTAs, you made a pledge at these awards. Take us through that pledge.
Yes, these awards for me personally, I think were very close to my heart because I wanted to make sure that we bring the focus on the cause of women through these awards. And we started off, we know that it was a centenary for Albertina Sisulu as well as Mandela. As much as the main theme was the Mandela centenary in the awards, we brought through the celebration of Albertina Sisulu's contribution into this country, and that really was a very important part. Secondly, we hosted a tea party for women nominees where we were saying we want to shine shine a spotlight on all of the women that have been nominated. But beyond that, we then encourage the rest of the country to take a pledge against sexual harassment. And this once again comes out of a study that was done by SWIFT that showed that over 70% of women feel violated in the workplace. I mean, this is a scourge that really should be our biggest concern. And we are making a point to say it is everyone's responsibility. We've got to do what it takes and commit to do it.
Indeed, indeed.
Yes.
Now, do you think that women receive the same amount of respect and recognition in this industry? And if not, whose responsibility is it to ensure that they receive the same amount of recognition and respect and support as well?
Well, I think that absolutely not. I do not think that women get that respect. And I must say that it goes right across. It's not even for women, let's say, in front of camera, behind camera. Right. Those that are, hold other administrative offices in the industry. It goes right across. But we are saying that instead of waiting to be given the respect, let us who are in positions that we can make a contribution towards making sure that the efforts that women make are recognized and the efforts that women make do not go to waste. It is absolutely upon us to do that. And it's not only for women leaders to do that like myself, but it's for everyone in any position of influence, that within their sphere of influence, you must always make sure that the cause of women is at the forefront.
But then are you doing it? Are you fighting for the rights of women in film?
Absolutely. All the things that I've just indicated to you in terms of the policies that we have made that are clearly preferential for women, okay, shining a spotlight on women in platforms like, as I said, like the SAFTAs, making sure that we go beyond celebrating just everyone else, but use those platforms in order to put forward a challenge everyone else to take a commitment. For instance, the SWIFT pledge that was taken, I would still say every single one must go beyond just taking a pledge, but they must commit to take action and support organizations like SWIFT.
Zama Nkosi, CEO of the NFVF, thank you so much for chatting to us this morning. Well, that is the CEO of the NFVF talking to us about the pledge against sexual harassment on women in film. Well, a few months ago, as you know, the NFVF held a dialogue focused on issues that were about the challenges faced by women in film. This is Morning Live. Let's go for coffee now, shall we?